Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy. You're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. And our guest right now is Altair Gobo, partner at U.S. Financial Services and author of the book Getting to the Green, Golf, Financial Planning, and Life, Not Necessarily in That Order. Welcome to the show, Al.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I have to read everybody this awesome intro that I got about Altair. It says, what is it about golf that makes it so irresistible to everyone from postal workers to presidents? Is it the beautiful scenery, the camaraderie, the mental challenge of planning, strategy, and execution? Financial planner and dedicated weekend golfer Altair Gobo has learned that golf is the perfect metaphor for the mental challenges of financial planning. And in his new book, Getting to the Green, Golf, Financial Planning, and Life, Not Necessarily in That Order, Gobo shares entertaining and easy-to-follow lessons based on the game he loves to educate readers to take better control of their financial future. So first, tell us all about the book, Altair.
Well, you did a great job there, by the way, Stace, with the interview, with the introduction, rather, and the book really came to light over the last, 10, 15 years. I started playing golf very late in life. I was probably in my 40s because we had played basketball, baseball, every other thing, and one day said, you know what, the knees aren't holding up, or the a little bit more pain than I used to have. Let's try this other game because it looks really easy. And sure enough, we went out and you put the little white ball down, and the first couple of swings, you find out very quickly that it's probably one of the most difficult games around. And having played for several years now, I realized very quickly that this game is really a metaphor, not only on financial planning, financial services, but life in general. There's so many different things that you can look at to say, wow, this happens in life, or this happens in my finances. So I'll give you an example. One day, looking at the bag, you're allowed to carry 14 clubs in your bag. And you can't carry any more, but you could carry less. And of those 14 clubs, they're all different. There's a driver, there's a wedge, there's a putter, there's a long iron, a short iron, and you quickly realize that you have different tools to accomplish different tasks. Well, guess what? That sounds like diversification to me. And
right.
So when you apply it to your portfolio or your financial plan, you need diversification. You need tools that can do different things at different times, that can react differently in different economic environments, that can accomplish goals that have different time horizons, et cetera, et cetera. And you certainly wouldn't use your driver to putt or your putter to drive. And so the same with financial planning, where I see people that have short-term needs and they have their money invested in the market, which could be very volatile. So they may need their money in 3 months, and guess what? The market may take a serious downturn in the next 3 months. So you need to plan accordingly.
So I have a question. As far as you talked about your golf, that you got involved in golf later in life, when it comes to financial planning, is there a point where it's just too late to start financial planning?
Well, that's a great question, too. And honestly, I never thought of that metaphor. But I started golf late in life. When should you start financial planning? Well, just like golf, I wish I would have started earlier. Okay?
Right.
But just like the real world, it's never too late. I mean, you may not be able to accomplish all your goals at a certain time. For example, if a person is 75 years old and says he'd like to have $1 million by the time he's 80 and he only has 100,000 now, well, it's going to be difficult. Okay?
Right.
It's going to be impossible. But I think it would be wrong to say it's too late or don't do it now. What I found out in doing all of this stuff is that, the reason why people don't start early enough is because they don't have the discipline.
Right.
And it takes a lot of discipline to do things. It takes a lot of discipline to go on a diet. It takes a lot of discipline to get good at golf, to practice. I mean, I don't have golf discipline because my practice occurs on the weekends when I'm playing. So I'm never going to get real good, because if I really wanted to get good, I'd have to practice a lot. I'd have to practice every day. So the difference in people that have discipline and not, and I like the phrase that what's worse, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret? So
Right.
on the weekday, my pain of discipline is really not that terrible because I don't get up to go play. I don't leave the office to go practice. But on a weekend when
Right.
I'm not playing that well, my regret is horrible.
Right.
But there's nothing you can do about regret. And it's the same thing in
Right.
financial planning. If you don't do something soon enough, you're going to regret it one day. So which one is worse, the discipline or the pain of regret?
Right. So I'm going to read your book because it makes financial planning interesting, because one of the lessons you talk about is to become a lifelong student of the game. And other than your book, almost any book you read on like investing and financial planning, it is so boring. How else can people stay engaged and become a lifelong student?
Well, number one, there's different levels of players in golf. Okay, there are. I played with someone last week who was a zero, scratch guy. I mean, and his just watching him is phenomenal. And then the other guys I play with are 12, 15, 20 handicap. So there's different levels, and the same in financial planning and investing. There are different levels. There are people that want to know every single thing, and there are people that really don't want to know anything. And I caution the latter, because you should know something. Become a student, but become a student in the way that's comfortable for you. So when I did this book is meant for people that play golf, don't play golf, for people that have invested, don't invest. And the whole idea here was to demystify, because a lot of people don't get into, I want to learn a lot about financial planning, because they think it's so, heavy weighted, and they got to learn about derivatives, and they got to learn. No, you really don't. You need to know the basics. And then once you know the basics, you take it from there. I mean, how much more do you want to know? It's up to you.
Right. What kind of advice would you have for somebody graduating from college today, starting a brand new career? What's the first thing they should do to prepare for their future?
Create a plan. I mean, if I would tell anybody one thing, it would be create a plan. I did a guest lecture 2 weeks ago at a high school in Jersey City, and these kids were in a finance literacy course. And the whole strength of the meeting was based on you have to have a plan. And so if you're graduating college and you're going out into the workforce, first of all, if you've started work already, part-time, doing whatever, look back at your history of spending. Okay, what have you done with all the money you've made during your part-time jobs, etc.? And then are you satisfied with what you've done? And most people will say, well, probably not, because I haven't saved any money. And one of the reasons are probably because they didn't make that much, and that's okay. Now that you're going to start making money, what is your plan? Okay?
Right.
And the plan should be, the overall plan should be to make sure that the money you're making works as hard for you as you have for it. Okay?
Right.
Which means don't spend it foolishly, don't invest foolishly, don't leave it under your mattress because it's not working for you, but do the right stuff. And as important, if not more important, make sure you pay yourself. I mean, it's not all about investing. It's not all about making millions. It's about, quality of life. I mean, do you want to enjoy yourself and have a vacation, buy yourself a new jacket or whatever it is? Do you want to donate money to charity? Do you want to help other people? And the only way you'll know if you could do all these things is create the plan.
Right. As far as investing goes, do you give different advice to men versus women?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I think if you asked me that question 20 years ago, I might have a different answer. Today, it really depends, not whether they're men or women, on the sex of the person. It depends on their knowledge, their interest, and where have they been over the last X amount of years. So, for example, if a woman comes in and recently widowed or recently divorced, and her spouse was the one who, A, may have been the breadwinner, B, may have handled all the finances, may need to speak with that person a little differently than you would for a person who has done all of that before. Okay,
right.
But that could be true if it was a man that was widowed or divorced, and his wife was the breadwinner and handled the finances. So I mean, I think to categorize people in just a major men or women, I think it's a little dangerous, but having said that, in my experience, okay, we have something called the quantitative and the qualitative analysis. The quantitative is easy. That's the number crunching. The qualitative is getting inside people's heads, and women and men definitely do act differently.
Yeah.
That whole Venus and Mars thing, I think, comes into play.
Yes, I've invested my whole retirement into shoes, and my husband invests our retirement into playing golf.
Well, I hope your shoes go up in value.
I know. That's all I'm going to have to show for my retirement, unless I actually read this book, which I do promise I'm going to do.
Great.
I had a question. I know one of the sections in your book is about avoiding hazards. What kind of sand traps are you talking about in your book?
Okay, so in golf, again, perfect metaphor because there's all kinds of hazards. And it's not only recognizing the hazard, it's what do you do, to either A, avoid the hazard, or if you're in the hazard, what do you do to get out of the hazard? So in real life, we have things that are in our control and things that are not in control. What's in our control, all right? In our control are things like spending habits. In our control is, frivolous spending or not paying attention or having an account and just not looking at it for 5 years, that old set it and forget it attitude. So that's a hazard. Out of our control is really more dominant, whereas you have the general economy, you have stock market swings, volatility, you have things that can happen, like in a golf course, the wind kicks up, you can't control that. You have things that happen, a death in a family, a marriage, a new child. I mean, things that happen that, in many things, you just don't control that. And so you have to have in your plan, a contingency plan, the what if. What if? Because it's easy to plan and say, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and E. Well, what happens if F comes up? And so part of your plan should be a contingency plan. So, for example, in all the plans that we have, all right, we look at life from 3 different points of view. Number one, you live forever, which you put a number on that, 95, 105, whatever. Number 2, you die prematurely, meaning yesterday. Or number 3, you have some kind of accident or sickness that prevents you, from accomplishing the goals if you were healthy and still working. And the idea is to look at your plan through those 3 portals and say, does my plan work? And if it doesn't, why? And what can I do about it today before something happens? And again, it's just called contingency planning.
Right. All right, so I have an 8-year-old. Bob has a baby. When should we start planning for college?
Well, it's too late because you should have started planning the day they were born. All right, but in all kidding aside, today, and again, it's pretty common sense and easy when you think about it. Demystify everything. What I would do if I were you is with the 8-year-old say, look, I got 10 years to go. What do I think? Forget what do I think it's going to cost then. What do I think the college that he would go to is going to cost today? All right? And then you have somebody work the numbers for you and see how much do I have to put away each year to get to that magic number 10 years from now. All right? And it's like everything else. You may not be able to do it for whatever reason, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything at all.
Right.
Okay? Because the kid might get scholarship, there might be financial aid, there might be all these other things, or not, okay? But it's like buying a car. You walk into the dealership and he wants to sell you the highest end car in the showroom, and you can't afford it. You don't say, well, I'm not going to drive. You say, well, show me something else. And it's the same with planning for college. But I can tell you right now, college costs in the last 25, 30, 40 years have not gone down. I mean, I sent 2 kids, one to NYU, one to George Washington University, and, you can buy a house for the amount of money that tuition costs. So, and I don't foresee it getting less expensive going forward. So, start planning now.
All right, last question. We only have a couple more minutes, and anybody that's just tuning in, we have Altair Gobo. He wrote the book, Getting to the Green, Golf, Financial Planning, and Life, not necessarily in that order. Last question is, somebody does not have even a plan yet. First of all, can you work with somebody who has financial planning needs anywhere in the United States? And my second question is, for somebody shopping for a financial planner, how do you tell if it's somebody reputable that you should be working with?
Yeah, great questions. The answer to one, yes, we can work with anyone within the United States, and we do have clients all over the place, but truthfully, most of them started here in New Jersey with us, and they moved to Florida, Montana, whatever, and we've maintained them as clients. In our business, we're not really a robo kind of business where I know millennials like to do everything online today, and we have younger guys here that are doing stuff like that. Our business is a face-to-face. It's like a doctor-patient relationship. It's like a lawyer-client relationship where we like to be hands-on. So most of our business is within a certain radius from where we are, or we make it a point when we were dealing with people. We have about 12 clients on the east coast of Florida. We make it a point to get down there twice a year until 3 years ago when one of them said it would be great if you had a place down there. And my wife said, okay, let's get a place. And no, he meant an office. So now we also have a place in Florida, which is pretty cool as a side note. But so can we deal with anyone? The answer is yes. How do you find somebody? Well, how do you find anybody, from a doctor to a carpenter to a, whoever? Ask people. Ask people that you trust. Get a referral. For me to look online or to look, in the old days there was something called a phone book, and today you go online and you plug in Google financial planner and 5 million people come up. Right. I don't know what that means. And, if I were looking for any kind of advice, tax advice, legal advice, financial advice, I would first ask the people that I know and that I respect in business or friends, who do you know? Who do you use? And that usually works out pretty well.
Right. That's great advice. Altair, where can people find your book, Getting to the Green?
Well, they can find it on Amazon.com, or they can find it on our website, www.usfsc.com.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. This has been great. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.
You too. That's all for this edition of Get Real. Make sure you join us again next weekend for more.